Look up from your telescope, take me on this journey home. I don't wanna wait no more.
Y'all, it's your good sis Erica Bain back again with another amazing All-American video. And in this video, we are still going back in time. We're going back to season 1, and this is going to be a video breaking down episode 2. Let's get into it. Alright, y'all, if you have missed it, check out my episode 1, the pilot episode breakdown. I am breaking down all of season 1, episode by episode, and you don't want to miss it. So I will link in the description box down below my video for episode 1 in case you are new here. And if you're new here, I'm Erica Bain, and I post new All-American videos every day. I already have about 200 videos that are centered around season 3. However, now I am taking it back to the beginning, back to the basics, and talking about season 1 and creating content around that as we wait and watch for production to happen and All American season 4 to return on October 25th. So let's get into this episode 2 breakdown. Episode 1 was definitely one of my favorite pilots ever, like ever. Of all pilots that I've ever seen, it's definitely one of my favorites. It was just so beautifully done, and I think that All American does a really great job of keeping up that tone, that pace, the freshness, and the intrigue. As they start episode 2, we get a flashback to Grace and a young Spencer James, and then that is intercut with a present day Spencer James on the beach who is in the thick of the Beverly Hills lifestyle, and we start to see just how different this is for him. We get to see, him making adjustments and trying to fit in and finding his place here. We still get the present conflict and through line of Asher and Asher having an issue with him. Jordan is kind of coming around after being exposed for giving a tip to Chatworth, and now Spencer has to live with him. And then we also get to see very, very early on in the first 3 minutes, Spencer and Layla connect in a way that it's just friends, but you can tell that Spencer's energy is feeling her, and she is definitely putting out feelers and kind of feeling him too. Now, the start of the episode, we see Spencer going back and forth between Beverly Hills and Crenshaw because he doesn't necessarily feel like he fits yet. So he keeps running home, and he knows that he's supposed to be in Beverly Hills during the week and Crenshaw on the weekend, and Grace has to remind him like, yo, you're gonna have to stop doing this. And luckily that he is home at this time because he sees Coop get dropped off by Sean. So then we also get that added tension, and this is all in the cold open because Sean is trying to get Coop to be a part of this gang, and Spencer ain't having it. Now, one of my favorite scenes of this entire episode is the scene where Olivia walks in on Spencer while he is showering, and it's so freaking cute and speaks to Olivia's character because the Olivia that we meet in season 1 is very reserved now. She is a little bit eclectic and nervous. Like even in episode 1, we saw her make the little like cringy face and she was like, sushi on Friday? Like who does that? Because she felt awkward about how she was coming across to Spencer. And I thought that this scene was so beautifully placed because it really let us know where we're at. Olivia has liked Spencer from the moment that she met him and interacted with him, and now that he's living in her house, she's having to deal with those feelings, developing a friendship, and like what does this actually look like, because she's also not one to put herself out there or be uber assertive, and that's what I think that we see. Now, also with this episode, we get to see more of Laura and how she's navigating within the family. And then we start to really see the buildup of Jordan's resentment for Spencer, because before it was just he was an outsider coming in, but then we get the moment where they're talking about football and Spencer and Billy have a moment where they say the exact same thing, like they're thinking the exact same thing, and you can see the resentment just settle on Jordan's face. And all of this really just gives us further clarity in the first 2 episodes. So in this episode, second episode of the season of the series, we really just get further clarity into who these characters are. In this episode, we also see Asher get hurt. He's playing against Spencer. They play the same position and on opposite teams in practice, and Asher's ankle gets sprained, which is something that we circle back to later on in the episode because Lord, Asher's little drunk daddy decides to be kind of presenting a little bit of bigotry and classism when he confronts Spencer and Billy at the booster party, talking about his son is the reason why Asher is currently hurt right now, which is like a faux build up to the idea that Spencer is actually Billy's son, but in this moment he meant Jordan, because then it comes out that Jordan actually is the one who gives the tip to Chatsworth. And oh y'all, see, this is why I cannot do these freaking breakdowns. So I actually spoiled it for you. So in the previous episode I talked about Jordan actually being the one to tell Chatsworth about Spencer not living in Beverly Hills, but we don't find that out until this episode. Okay, I'm gonna try to do better and try not to do spoilers and stay in the episode. But it's so good how they intricately weaved everything together with this series at the start. Oh, it's so beautiful. Going back, because I really jumped forward in talking about the booster party, my second favorite moment of the episode is between Spencer and Olivia again, where we get to see Spencer comes down, he's ready for this booster party, and he has some jeans and some Vans, and this ain't it. But he has no fancy clothes, he has no suits, and Olivia is like, I got it. And she finds a suit that Billy has, puts it on him, tailors it to him, makes him look and feel amazing. And they have a really special connective moment as friends. I love when Spencer says, like, you're good at this, and she's like, what? You know, him in some pants. He's like, no, making people feel good. And I'm like, yes, we love to see it. And this is where you start to get to really see the chemistry peak, or start to peak, with Spencer and Olivia, even though I still feel like in this moment we don't necessarily know, like, even though in this moment I feel like we don't necessarily know how invested he is into the romantic feelings around him and Olivia, especially since he just moved into the house. Like, he wants to definitely keep it respectful. Spencer's a respectful guy. And then from there we get to see them into the party, the booster party, and almost immediately Layla walks up, and then you get to see Spencer's face light up. You get to see, like, oh yeah, he's very much so into this girl. And it's almost like a little bit of a game of cat and mouse, because she's unavailable, however she's still very present for him. My third favorite scene of this episode, and this really, well, part of it is what they say, and I love the reveal of a little bit more of Layla's backstory. We get to learn about her mom and things like that. But my third favorite scene of this episode is definitely the scene with Layla and Spencer standing outside with all these fairy lights in the trees around them. Cinematically, it is freaking gorgeous. And then they both have a vulnerable moment with each other, and I just think it's so sweet and so beautiful. And I'm just like, girl, this is it. You should have jumped Asher right here, because this is everything. They have this moment, they almost kiss, but she pulls back because what? She's in a relationship. And while she definitely sees herself developing feelings for Spencer, I don't necessarily know if she's there yet. When we go back into this booster party and Asher's dad's drama, it's something that Spencer uses to make the case of him being able to play both ways, and they get to an agreement for it. And that's interesting because we come back to that later on in the episode, but then this also sparks a deep conversation with the Bakers. And honestly, this is the first time we actually see them sit down and talk, but you can tell that this is also something that they don't necessarily do regularly. And one thing that comes out is that Billy didn't even talk to them about bringing Spencer into the house before he brought Spencer into the house. And we really start to get the seeds of, like, the breakdowns in communication and the lack of connection with the Bakers. I love Olivia standing up in this moment and standing up for Jordan and how he feels, even though he was wrong for what he did, but then also letting him know, like, yeah, you have Jordan that's processing this, but then you also have a daughter that's fresh out of rehab that needs you too, so you need to figure out how do you show up for Spencer but also show up for us as your family. And child, episode 2 is where we really start to see angry Spencer arrive, because we saw him fight in episode 1, but when he goes and confronts Sean about this dang on comic book, it escalates. It goes from 0 to 100 very quickly, unnecessarily. And it's like, Spencer, it's a comic book, relax. I know that you don't want Sean around your brother, you don't want Sean trying to get your brother into a gang and all of that, but sir, you were given 1,000 and I need you to be on like a 4. I think the best part about the game that we see in this episode is Spencer's playing both defense and offense, and we can see how hard he goes. We can see how hard he pushes himself as an athlete. Like in the first episode, we get to see how smart he is and how keyed in he is to the game and how his natural talent is. But in this game, we get to see how hard he's willing to go, to what lengths he's willing to stretch himself, even if it's too far. And then we start to get to see the dynamic of Billy and Spencer from coach to player and how that's going to work. And is Billy going to be mindful enough to keep Spencer's health and well-being front of mind, not just focused on wanting to win. An intercut between the actual football game is scenes that we see with Coop being with Sean, and we get the seeds of like, yeah, Sean is a gangbanger, but he's not that bad because he has Coop deliver a sandwich to one of his homies in jail right now, and they're just trying to look out. So we get to see the little wholesome moments of, like I mentioned in my episode 1 breakdown, we get Sean as the initial villain, but something about him always shows that he is more than just the villain, but he has a good heart and there's something else to him. All American did a really great job from the very start of laying groundwork for the various storylines with the various characters, and one of the strongest ones that like presents himself in episode 2 is the one between Asher and Olivia and their secret that they're holding. This makes the whole thing even more complicated in reference to Spencer and Layla, because while Layla is trying to be a good girlfriend and not cross the line, there's also the secret between her best friend and her current boyfriend that has yet to come out. Now, before the episode ends, we get to see the Bakers sit down and actually have the conversation that they probably should have had before Spencer moved in now. And they actually decide that Spencer needs to stay. And I'm proud of Jordan in this moment because from the very beginning, he was giving me elitist asshole and I wasn't for it. But he decided to get on board after causing a little bit of problems. Instead of just speaking how he felt and telling his daddy that he didn't feel good about this decision, now we're finally at a good and grounded place. And y'all, one of the things that I missed in season 3, real quick pop out, the Coop and Spencer at the playground talking and chopping it up. We didn't get much of that at all because most of season 3, Coop and Spencer spent fighting. But we get to see that in this episode. And every time we get to see it in season 1, I really, really enjoy it. I also enjoy Spencer and Jordan coming to a place of commonality and agreement, and this is where you get to see the budding or the starting of their little bromance because they develop a brotherhood. And child, I'm never going to forgive All American for keeping the beats, the tracking going of is Billy Spencer's dad, because before the end of the episode we get another flashback to that same game that we started the episode with, and we get to see Billy looking on all fatherly like. So that is my breakdown for episode 2 from season 1. Be sure to go and check it out right now on Netflix. All of season 1, 2, and 3 are currently streaming, so go back and rewatch it and then come and let me know what you thought about episode 2 in the comment section down below. I'm your girl Erica Vane. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and join the tribe. I am dropping new All American videos every day, as well as jumping down in the comment section and having amazing conversations with y'all, and I would really love if you joined me. So hit that subscribe button and join the tribe. My season 1 All American playlist will be linked for you, as well as my All About All American playlist. So pick and choose what you want to check out. There's tons of content for you to deep dive into, and there's more on the way. I'll see you in my next amazing All American video. Bye.